How many of you are waking up and starting to see how badly screwed we are? It's barely been 100 days, and the President of the United States has already floated the idea of suspending the Constitution and going even farther. Suspending habeas corpus predates the Constitution by nearly 100 years. It's from the Magna Carta, a charter of basic human rights. He's also now talking about recognizing Palestine. How many of you had that on your bingo card for 2025? Pretty unreal. But there's also another strange parallel. How many of you remember us talking about the series Black Sails? And when you looked at what was going on in the West Indies during the 1700s, you can see some very strange parallels to what's going on now. And we're going to cover that in this video. Over at Patreon, however, we've just put up a brand new video for both the unit commanders and the brigade commanders. The next step up is a brigade commanders only video, which is going to be up next 48 to 72 hours, talking about this issue with Palestine and how this has been prophecy. Love to have you over there. There's 4 levels, dozens and hundreds actually of videos for all 4 levels, 2, 5, 10, 15 a month, whatever you choose, all fully refundable. No risk to you, fully refundable first 90 days, no questions asked. It's already getting toward to be the middle of May, so middle of June, middle of July, all the way to the middle of August. You could spend all summer with no risk watching those videos over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. Love to have you over there. God bless all of you who've joined, but let's get right to it. What really is habeas corpus? I'm sure the vast majority of my audience is intelligent enough to know that if the U.S. government detain someone, they have to go before a judge and say, Your Honor, this is why we've detained them. Here is the legal basis upon which we have detained them. They have to present that person in front of a judge. Hence the term habeas corpus. Well, now Stephen Miller is floating the idea, National Security Advisor, Stephen Miller, that we no longer want this. It's too big of an impediment. Well, guess who else thought it was too big of an impediment? Ready to have your mind blown? The King of England. The King of England. See, this is a cartoon from way back during the Revolutionary era. And for those of you that can't read the small writing, it says, it is better to do this, meaning the body of Magna Carta, Bill of Rights, habeas corpus being hung at the gallows. It is better to get rid of those 3 things, the Magna Carta, Bill of Rights, habeas corpus, than to stand prostrate at the feet of anarchy. At the feet of anarchy. See, that's what ties in the Black Sails argument. See, they had pirates back then too. They had people coming to the Americas from all over the world. Some of them not so great. Some of them not so super fantastic. And you know what they dealt in? The same things that is being alleged that MS-13 deals in today. Gun running, substances, whether in this case it's rum, but you could just say weed or fentanyl or whatever else. And women. This was going on 300 years ago. And the King of England said, we need to suspend all rights of everybody because of this anarchy. The only argument between the revolutionary colonists and the British was about who was going to be in charge of the tax money. It wasn't in concept of rights. In fact, the colonists made the allegation that it was their rights as British citizens that had been violated with the Stamp Act. That's the whole basis of the Tea Party. The colonists wanted the tax money to be levied by America and the money kept here. The English said, no, these are our ships. You're just an English colony. The tea is coming from India and it's going to England. So we're the ones, pardon me, the English government saying, the king was saying, that we're the ones who are going to levy the taxes and keep the money, and no one else can. It had nothing to do with the Bill of Rights. A lot of people think the Bill of Rights was the defining thing between England and the colonies. It had nothing to do with it. In fact, let's see here. This is a habeas corpus enacted into law 1679. That's your right to go before a judge and be charged. The English Bill of Rights, they had one, a lot of people don't know, enacted in 1689, was a landmark act that established the rights and liberties of English citizens and limited the power of the monarchy. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? A lot of people don't get this. Is the part that's really going to blow your mind. Parliamentary supremacy. The Bill of Rights, English Bill of Rights, 1689, asserted that Parliament, our Congress, had the power to make laws and raise taxes, and that the monarch, our president, could not act without Parliament's consent. Individual liberties. Here's where you're going to need to sit down. Second Amendment people. Here's where you're going to need to sit down. It guaranteed certain rights to individuals, including the right to petition the king. We don't even have that right today in America. The right to bear arms for self-defense. That's right. In England, in 1689, you had a right to bear arms for self-defense. That was not an American invention. Freedom of speech in Parliament, freedom from excessive bail, and cruel and unusual punishment. The king couldn't even raise an army without getting permission from Parliament. This was the entire point. This was just a reflection of what England had already done, just with an American flavor to it. That's why you see the big difference between the language in 1776, when the war ended, and 1789, when the Bill of Rights and the Constitution was codified. You see, they had a problem. The New World had a problem. And Black Sails did an incredible job over 4 seasons of talking about this problem. The pirates of New Providence Island, which is basically just the Bahamas, threatened maritime trade. They were the MS-13 of their day. They were the MS-13 of their day. And they traded in the same things. But nobody then was talking about suspending rights other than the king. Other than the king. But here's where things get really sideways. Would you like to see something shiny? Would you like to see something shiny, to quote Captain Jack Rackham? You see, when you add in giant piles of gold, all of a sudden people's pie-in-the-sky philosophy about freedom changes. You see, there's gold in them, our migrants. It's an army of slave labor. It's an army of slave labor that's going to make people tons and tons of rich like you've never seen before. Watch the series Black Sails and tell me I'm wrong. You see, they tried to hang the captains. It didn't work. It didn't work. They tried to raise crowds and get everybody all up in arms. This is a scene from Black Sails. Look familiar? Does it look familiar? There's so many people out there that for so long, especially Trump cult people, who think they know what the Constitution says and thinks that it was some invention of the Founding Fathers when it was literally just a carbon copy of what England was doing, just redirecting the money to them instead of the king. George Washington was great friends with the King of France, Louis, at the time. He had no problem with the concept of a king. He personally didn't want to be one. But if there had been the idea of the people to move to elect a king, which we pretty much have done now in this country, he didn't have a problem with it. See, the Bible teaches us, Be not inhospitable to strangers, lest they be angels in disguise. And I want to share something else with you guys real quick from the English Bill of Rights. The 1689 English Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights addressed the issue of succession, ensuring that the throne would be inherited by a Protestant ruler, meaning no Jews, no Muslims, no Catholics, and definitely no blacks. Whatever rule. It was codified. No influence from the papacy, no influence from the cult of Islam, no Hindus, no Jews, and no blacks. Now, how many of you out there who are probably scratching either your beard or your head right now, going, that's what was going on in England 100 years before the United States? Yeah. That's what was going on in England 100 years before the U.S. was anything like what we saw. For 250, nearly 300 years, the people from Europe, whether it be Italy, Portugal, Germany, the Dutch, the French, the Spanish, the English, they raped and robbed and pillaged and killed and murdered their way across this continent and the one directly to our south for 300 years with impunity. They did not recognize the rights as human beings of the slaves that were brought here from Africa to effect this, or the residents that were living here at the time. First horseman of the apocalypse, the great white horse going forth to conquer, conquering and to conquer. For 300 years, from the 1500s through the 1800s into the 1900s, Manifest Destiny was carte blanche to do whatever to completely subdue all things from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco, north literally to the Arctic Circle, and south all the way to Antarctica. Was all the conquest of the first horseman. Now things are changing. You see, based on getting rid of habeas corpus, we could deport every single African American back to Africa, theoretically speaking. Without having to go before a judge, we could just randomly snap up people, say, oh, you look African. You look African. We're going to go snatch you up and put you in a jail cell, and then we're going to use the military to fly you off to one of our airfields out in the middle of Africa, drop you off, and just leave. That's what suspending habeas corpus does. The U.S. government doesn't have to prove anything to anybody. They can just use the Patriot Act and pick up anybody for any reason, detain them for any amount of time, no access to a lawyer, no habeas corpus going before a judge. And once again, those of you out there saying, the Constitution doesn't apply to illegal aliens, there was no such thing. There was no such thing as an illegal alien in 1679. The term didn't exist. There was no United States or Constitution, nor does the word citizen appear in the Constitution. That is one of the differences between the Bill of Rights of England and us, is that our Bill of Rights recognizes those rights as being endowed from the Creator to mankind. That all men are endowed. All men, not just British citizens. Not just American citizens. The very concept of an American citizen would have been aberrant to the Founding Fathers. That British citizens have rights, but people from Spain, people from France, people from Italy, people from Germany, people from Denmark, people from the Netherlands, the Dutch, the Danes. None of them have rights. Only English citizens do. Habeas corpus. All free men, freedom from unlawful imprisonment. Free men. Which then, of course, excluded all of the blacks in Africa. Facts. So the next time you see somebody out there running around with their little make-believe costumes, their little 3%er hats, you might want to actually read them some history. Because they look like a bunch of idiots talking about suspending people's rights. People's rights. Not citizens, people's. Because habeas corpus, you get rid of that, you take away everybody's rights. Everybody's rights to everything. And you leave it in the hands of a single king. And his, of course, little circle of acolytes. And the cult. I'll leave it there. Like I said, the issue with Palestine being recognized, that's a big deal. We're going to talk about that over at the Patreon channel. God bless all of you for being there. I very much appreciate it. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.